You are about to begin the Lesson 2 Classification Explain Everything presentation. More information can be found in Chapter 9, pages 222 to page 233 in your textbook. It is an assignment that you read this chapter as part of your homework for this unit. To begin, we can see both of these pictures. The first is a series of grasshoppers that need to be classified by species, and the second is a group of men going through several plants and looking at their leaves to classify them into different species. Classification is putting things in orderly groups based on similar characteristics. It's a system to help keep track of and organize all living things. So we're dealing with classification. Classification of living things makes it easier for biologists as well as taxonomists to answer many important questions. To find out what 3 questions are important to ask when classifying species into groups, please open your textbook to page 222. There is a reading check at the bottom of the page. Please record the 3 questions biologists and taxonomists ask when classifying on the right side of your paper, next to the heading that says Lesson 2, Classification. Please pause to record your answers. Our modern system of classification is based on the system developed by Carlos Linnaeus in the 1750s. His system has undergone numerous revisions since then to our current system, which is still evolving with discoveries of new organisms. Taxonomy is the science of describing, classifying, and naming living things. Taxonomists use an 8-level system to classify living things, although in this particular example, only 7 of the 8 levels are represented. The more characteristics organisms share, the more closely related the organisms may be. So here we can say that the house cat is more closely related to the bobcat than it is to the lion because they share more characteristics with each other. Here we have the entire 8-level system listed. Every living thing is classified into one of 3 domains. All living things in domains are then sorted into kingdoms. Then they are further sorted into phyla, classes, then orders, families, and finally the genus, and the most specific is the species. So we can see characteristics become more specific as you move from domain to species, as well as the number of organisms in each level decreases. So organisms that share the same genus are more closely related than organisms that share the same kingdom. When classifying organisms, biologists give organisms scientific names. This name is always the same even if the organism has many different common names. Scientific names have 2 parts: the genus, which is always capitalized, and species, which is never capitalized. Usually, those names are either underlined or italicized with Latin or Greek origins that contain information about that organism. Here we have the Tyrannosaurus rex. Tyrannosaurus is the genus, where rex is the species. To help identify unknown organisms, taxonomists have developed special guides called dichotomous keys. Using a series of paired descriptive statements or questions, the key aids identification. So a quick example would be using this organism. You'd go to question 1 and read through the statements and decide which one matches this animal. In this case, this mammal does not fly. Its hand does not form a wing. So we go to step 2. So then the mammal has hair on its tail. So we go to step 4. The animal does not have a black mask across its face. We go to step 6. The mammal is brown and has a white underbelly. So we go to 7. And then the mammal has a long furry tail with black at its tip. So we've identified this animal as a long-tailed weasel. Now we'll start our discussion on domains. The domain Archaea is made up entirely of Archaea. Archaea are made up of 2 types of prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are single-celled organisms without a nucleus. Their cell walls are different from other prokaryotes. Most Archaea live in extreme environments. 2 examples of their environments include sulfur vents, which are located at the bottom of the ocean, or hot springs, such as this one in the picture. The second domain is bacteria. All bacteria belong to the domain bacteria. All bacteria are prokaryotes. Bacteria usually have a cell wall on the outside of their cells and usually reproduce by cell division. Here in this picture we can see some bacteria under a microscope. Now at the bottom of your page I'd like you to write the following sentence. Some bacteria aid in digestion, others cause diseases, and others help fight disease-causing bacteria. If you need to hear that again, please stop and rewind and listen to it again. The third and final domain that we will be talking about is the domain Eukarya. Eukarya is made up entirely of eukaryotes. Eukaryotic organisms have cells with a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Both of these pictures are of eukaryotic cells. There are 4 kingdoms in the domain Eukarya. The members of the kingdom Protista are called protists. Here you can see several protists on a log. All protists are single-celled organisms. Scientists think that protists evolved from ancient bacteria, sorry you can't see that circle, about 2 billion years ago. Eventually, ancient protists gave rise to fungi, plants, and animals. Animal-like protists are called protozoans. Plant-like protists are called algae. Here is another example of a member of kingdom Protista. The second eukaryotic kingdom that we'll talk about is called fungi. Members of kingdom fungi, or also produce fungi, are multicellular organisms. Molds and mushrooms, such as this wild mushroom, are examples of fungi. Unlike plants, fungi do not perform photosynthesis, and they do not eat food like animals. Fungi absorb their nutrients using digestive juices from surrounding substances. Fungi cannot move, and they must reproduce by using spores. Most people can easily recognize most members of the kingdom Plantae. Plants are characterized by being eukaryotic and having cell walls. You can just write cell wall. Made of cellulose and making food through the process called photosynthesis. Most life on Earth is ultimately dependent on plants, such as these big trees, for their energy and nutrition. Plants also provide habitat for other organisms, such as birds living in there or insects. And now we'll talk about the final kingdom. The kingdom Animalia contains complex multicellular organisms, such as this very vicious lion. And animals do not have cell walls like their plant counterparts, and they are usually able to move around and have specialized sense organs. These sense organs allow animals to respond quickly to the changes in their environment, a distinct advantage to survival of the species. Animals depend on organisms from all other kingdoms for their survival, which means animals could not exist without the kingdoms of Protista, Fungi, or Plantae. We have reached the end of Lesson 2, Classification. Have a good day.